Hello everyone. Welcome back to Misfits Racing League action. It is time for round 3, and it is time for Tier 4 racing in Russia. And joining me for it, well, Unicorn, how you doing?
Yes, Jeff, thank you. I'm looking forward to this one, Russia. I like this track. A lot of overtaking opportunities. It's a little different to what we saw last week in Zandvoort, where it's a little bit more closed off, a little bit harder to overtake. But here in Sochi, well, I think it'll be much easier to get a move done than like it was last week.
Yeah, definitely. Sochi, 18 turns instead of 14 from last week. 5.848 kilometers, a very different circuit to what we saw through in the Netherlands. And of course, well, this is the third round now for the Tier 4 division, and all of these racers getting a little bit more of a sense now as we come into the third round of racecraft and how to really kind of manage one another on the circuit. And next week we'll be going through to Spa, following that Italy, Japan, Britain. We go to Azerbaijan as well as Hungary, Singapore, France, Spain, and we'll be taking a trip to Austria as well through before the penultimate round in Mexico. And then, of course, the finale in Brazil. Very excited for all of the action. And, well, with that said, let's take a look at the standings here as we jump in to round 3. Grenade Garan off to a very good lead with 43 points in the Haas. And we have Dazister with 30 points there. We're Polypunk in third position as well. And it's really tight still. We've had some very good races here in the first 2 rounds. And we're about to jump into now Russia, the Sochi Autodrome. Well, we've seen Bahrain, we've seen now the Netherlands, and now we're going to be going to Sochi. So some very different circuits we've already seen in this calendar. And I'm very excited to see how everyone shapes up. It's Ferrari, Haas, and Alfa Romeo, your top 3 for the constructors. And just a good chunk of drivers on this grid today. We have IDJ, who went from having a very, very up and down campaign in round 1 to having an up and down campaign in round 2, but I have to say everybody had that up and down campaign in round 2, but DJ managed to get himself 6 points, so he's actually sitting in 10th position in this drivers championship right now. Right behind him you have Kieran there, Alberto Perez, 4 points, they're tied. Kane, he's got 1 point to his name right now. Looking to see if we have any other ties on this grid. Things are pretty tight all the way through the championship, so it's early on, early days. But I think we're going to have ourselves a great third round here in Sochi. And that said, I think we're just about ready to go racing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, it's early days, but in the shorter calendar that we got going, every point that these drivers score over the first few weeks is very critical. You have a bad start to the season, it's going to affect the whole season. Whereas on a calendar with 20 odd races, you would have plenty of time to catch back up. We're already on to round 3 out of 15, so we're already a fifth of the way through. So there's a lot of points that have already been and gone. And for the likes of Grenade Goran, Daz, Polypunk, those guys, they've hit it off with a brilliant start. But obviously consistency is key. So a few of those drivers who are already in the top 10 have already got points to their name, having still got a great shot at winning the title as a whole. But as it stands, the early front runners, they do usually tend to be the ones who will still be fighting it out at the end, maybe with 1 or 2 changes here or there. But like you said, I think we're just waiting on 1 or 2 more people to hop into the lobby now, and then we can go racing.
18 turns here around Russia, and some of them can be quite tricky. We've seen loss of traction, especially in Sector 3 as well, just as we head into the 90-degree turns to round out the lap. We've seen issues coming into Turn 2, which is not to be mistaken for Turn 1. Of course, you have a little bit of a kink in that run into Turn 2. Turn 2, the first major right-hander of the circuit, where you'll flow through the very large winding Turn 3. Then you have the almost 90-degree right-hander of Turn 4, and again Turn 5. And things can get really tricky, especially in that first sector. And we'll have a good look in qualifying, as well as we're going to have 18 minutes of qualifying. Another thing to note here, there is a possibility of rain in Russia, so we are going to have a dynamic weather roll of the dice as we normally get. And well, it could very well just be that Tier 4 gets it. We had rain in the Netherlands last week. Out of 7 races, however, it was only 1 race that saw rain, and that was the Tier 2 Americas division. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how the luck goes for some of these racing grids this week, as this is their first of 7 races around now. The Sochi Autodrome for round 3 MRL racing action. Of course, my name's Striffy. I'm here from Canada. Joining me is Unicorn from the UK. If you're just tuning in, share the stream. because we are going to have a very, very electric race for you this evening here around Russia.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, well, it's just about time to get things underway, as we do have, I think, most people who are turning up at this point in time. And we're getting things kicked off. And like you said, qualifying, obviously, with the overtaking that is afforded to you here in Russia, qualifying not quite as important as it necessarily was last week and will be in some of the weeks following. But at the same time, well, you mentioned that first sector, turn 2 in particular on lap 1, could be quite chaotic. Kind of qualifying high up the grid and avoiding that, getting through ahead, what might happen into that second corner might well serve you very well in the race. So we'll see how that plays into things, but we're just about to get things ready here.
Everyone in the grid, I imagine here's the thing, right? You're tier 4, you are the first race of the week. Some of these other racing grids, they have that opportunity to study, watch the races before their own, get a little bit of strategy. Now, tier 4, not necessarily the case. They have practice races leading into round 3. They do their own due diligence in getting practice, but they don't really have any races to watch or base how, to get a gauge on how things are going to go. But, for the rest of the grids, this is somewhat of a gauge just the same. What I like about this is that we've had some great races from Tier 4 division. Despite them not being able to see how some of the other races reacted to the circuits, Tier 4 has provided us some stellar races. Great pace as well. Safety car is always a probable scenario to deal with in Russia as well. Of course, we'll want to get predictions from you on what we can do for safety cars. Have to see what happens.
Yeah, and we are getting ready to go now. So everyone's readying up. The lobby is counting down, and we will be loading into that 18-minute short qualifying session. And we'll just see how everyone fares. Like we mentioned, it's not as critical here to qualify as highly as it was last week. But, of course, you just don't... If you have a bad qualifying, it usually leads to, either it's showcasing a lack of pace or it leads to, just a difficult race. Fighting your way through the pack, it does take time. And it might lead everyone to, run away from you.
Alrighty, now getting into qualifying, all the drivers getting loaded up, and we are going to get our first roll of the dice of the week for the rain and the weather. I hope there's rain, but it doesn't look like it right now. Things looking pretty clear in the sky. Get a weather report in just a moment, but there we have it. 18 drivers on the grid here for Tier 4 Round 3 action. Kanay at the top of the timing tower. We have Shadrin in the Red Bull, four-door sedan in the Alpine, Undertaker in the Alfa Romeo, Lars in one of the Williams. We have Fred LaRouge on the grid here in a reserve capacity in one of the other Alpines, as well as Blind back here today as well. Jones in the Mercedes, with Tatsis in the Ferrari, Big Turbina, Fabry Flame, Mo, and Trick Sam, Super Noodle Bagel, Mr. Polypunk Disaster, Grenade Garan, and of course, IDJ, rounding out the 18 drivers on the grid. And we are just around that 18-minute mark for the qualifying. Going to be a very, very exciting campaign today for a good haul of laps in Russia.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're just seeing our classic little bit of qualifying. Decent cars that do appear to be leaving the garage, though. I think that there is the McLaren of Trixam, but he's been beaten out by Grenade Goran, last week's race winner. Are all said and done, and also the championship leader, 43 points, 13 points clear of second place Disaster there in the Alfa Romeo, then the two Ferraris behind him. So far so good for the Haas driver. He's been doing very well recently, and we'll see whether he can continue that form into Russia tonight. He's in the Haas car, and well, I think if liveries gave you any bonuses, Striff, well, this would be the track, and Grenade Gorans would be the car.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with that. That car, very representative of our host circuit today and our host nation. When we are in Russia, of course, that is the car that would be driven by Mr. Nikita Mazepin.
And it's just a patriotic car, I think, is the way to put that, as Grenade comes through out of turn 10 and down this, I say back straight, it's really just sort of two turns that sort of flow into one another. It's 11 and 12, and DRS through here, I expect a few lunges up the inside through 13 here, and we'll see how it all goes. And then this tricky final sector, all of this, the curbs, this game we've seen them already cause problems. This track, and even in the last edition of the game, has caused a few problems in the past with those big orange sausage curbs on the inside of a lot of these corners, especially in this final sector. So we'll see how the drivers tackle it tonight. But Grenade Goran going for the first flying lap of the session, coming out of the final corner through onto the inside of turn 1, this very slight right hander. Barely even notice it when we start the race, but we have had incidents coming out of there before. But really, the kicker is turn 2, the tight right hander into the left hander of 3 that goes all the way around here. Huge stadium on section on the left, right, as he comes through, keeping it tight to the inside into 4. Again, one of those sausage curbs. Don't want to hit that. Avoids it nicely and uses all of the curbs on the exit to get the maximum speed as he comes through now into 5. Just avoiding the wall on the exit there through the very slight right-hander of 6 into 7. And again, just utilizing all of the track here that he needs to. Now into 8 and 9, these two very quick left-handers before coming on to turn 10 through the DRS detection point. And obviously the rear wing opening here in qualifying through turn 11 down towards turn 12. Again, these corners barely even visible, but the drivers will know they're there. Into 13, hard braking for the right-hander, switching it back for 14 now, and into these final few 90-degree corners in sector 3. Here is 15, switching it back to 16. We've seen a few spins through there throughout the seasons. Not the case for Grenade, though, as he approaches the penultimate corner, turn 17, using all the curb on the exit as well, through into the final corner, turn 18. Very nicely done, and it's a 130.3 to open up qualifying here in Russia.
Well, solid run there to get things really started. Disaster gets things going in the McLaren as Trick Sam, 29.961, coming out of him, beating Grenade, and it's 4-door, the third time set here, 32.057 for the Alpine.
Yeah, and that's the reserve there of Tatsis in the Ferrari, 130.9, putting him third. Jones just went fourth with a 131.3. I think maybe a few of these runs might be slower to give maybe an opportunity for mediums if they want to try that in the sort of later stages. This is a fairly long lap, 1 minute 30. Time enough to get a few runs in, of course, but a lot less lenient than it was last week out in Zandvoort.
A lot of good times coming through here already, some very competitive times. I'm actually, hold on a moment. Lars and Grenade Goran have identical times here, George. They both set a 33.23. Big Turbina comes in behind them, the Red Bull a 30.7. This is, I think, the third time in as many rounds of racing this season that we have seen, at the very least in one grid, a duplicate qualifying time. So actually, excuse me, Jones and Shadrin both set a 31.309 in this session. So that's two drivers, or two pairs of drivers, excuse me, in the qualifying here today that set duplicate times.
Well, Shadrin, speaking of him, he's just done a nice little spin on what presumably is his in-lap, coming out of turns 2 and into 3. Very, very surprising there for the Red Bull. Disaster, and he's just gone fastest to 129.913. But yeah, very surprising to see two pairs of lap times, as it were.
That is, someone needs to go and play the lotto, you know, because that's just wild.
And it's come off the Rodriguez. Oh, Canet has a spin on the penultimate corner of his outlap, and Alberto Perez might have got caught up in that. I mean, I don't think it was going to be an amazing lap time regardless, but still, a 131.7 definitely would have been impeded a little bit there by the spin from the McLaren. And I wonder whether the McLaren's got enough speed built up before the last corner to make this a good run as well, because obviously this run down into turn 2 is a long one. As we are sort of approaching the halfway point, I believe, in qualifying. Qualifying does have this, tend to have the timer covered by the yellow flags. And Kane, a big slide. He is struggling in that McLaren. A spin on the outlap, a slide through turn 4. A setup seems to be just a little bit twitchy for his liking.
Well, one of 4 drivers here yet to set a time. You have Fred and Polypunk. They're both on outlaps right now, and it's all quiet, really. Not too many drivers on circuit pushing. But of course, Kane, he wants to get a time on that board. He's got that rear wing now wide open, pushing through sector 2, and well, he, as you said, he's been struggling today.
Yeah, just again, you want to have a low downforce setups to take advantage of the flat out sections of circuit coming out of turn 10, and obviously the run down into turn 2 as well. But you don't want that to compromise you with the spins and the slides he's been having in the race. If that persists, as he completely obliterates the bollard on the pit entrance, that is way too late. And if he does that in the race, well, stewards will be having a word with him and probably dishing out a penalty as well. Second time he's done that.
Well, yeah, he's not having a good time through that corner there, and this time it looked like he just wanted to get a couple good shots of Polypunk as he came through there. And Polypunk flying right now. He has also got no time on our tower.
Yeah, a few guys out on Flyers night now. Fred LaRouge as well, reserving in the Alpine. He's in for XTXP today, and like you mentioned, Polypunk as well in the Ferrari. See what he's capable of. Third in the championship right now. 1 win, and that was in round 1, and it's pole right now provisionally. A 1:29.799. That is just over 1/10 faster than Disaster's time.
Disaster's been having some good races. He finished 4th on round 1. We spoke to him last week as he and Grenade Garan had their absolute draw at the line. They were pushing with everything they had, and it was less than 0.04 of a second that separated them. And then we saw a very tight finish in the end for champions as well, where it was only a millisecond that separated Mr. Tomic and Luke Smith. We'll have to see if we get any tight draws to the line, or superior charges to the line. It's not really a circuit that allows for it, in all honesty, given the start finish line very tight to the exit of turn 18.
Yeah, and I do believe stewards went back and watched the finish between Grenade and Daz, and I think they didn't give it to Grenade despite the timing. I'm not sure what was going on there. I don't know if there was desync between the two cars, and timings on different screens show different results.
Well, I remember Disaster having said to us that night he thought that Grenade got him. So I don't know what it... I haven't actually looked at the final classification on that. Anyone that's looking to apply, of course, for the Misfits Racing League, you are more than welcome to do so now. We're going to get some commands dialed in into the Twitch chat very soon. However, I can say if you want to jump into the Discord, all you got to do is jump in there, type !apply in one of the text channels, and you'll be good to go. Get some time trial times in and get yourself into a reserve slot here in the MRL. Alberto Perez pushing through a little bit of traffic, it would seem, and not pushing. He's got no battery utilization. Who's in front of him? Trick Sam in the McLaren. He is going to be putting another time onto this board. However, on the medium compound tires, does not find any improvement.
Just trying to get someone back into the lobby here. Some sort of issue at the moment. We're just trying to fix that for Shadrin there. Hopefully he can get back in.
6 minutes remaining, or in and around that, as we may have a little bit of desync, but Blind coming through. In the Williams, we'll be looking to get a time on the board, as will Kane, who is further down the grid behind him. The only two drivers yet to get times onto the board here. Good for 12th position, a 31.054 from Blind. Kane, he is also pushing. We saw him struggling a couple of times already here in the McLaren.
There we are. Shadow's back in.
Very good. Hope to see that.
No problem there.
5th position for Jones at 30.2. He moves ahead of Grenade. Or excuse me, just ahead of Lars. Behind Grenade. Somebody else just crossed there. That was Alberto Perez. DJ goes 9th quickest here.
Yeah, time started coming 5 minutes down in the session. And not long now, and obviously, again, the longer lap times mean that we won't see too many more runs from everyone. We've got a couple of drivers out on flyers at the moment. Blind, like you mentioned, I think, in the Williams is flying, as well as Moen reserving for the first time this season. Someone we've seen previously last season racing in Tier 3. For the Racing Point Squad here in reserve for the Haas team.
Yeah, big shout out to the reserves that come through. Love to see it. And Moen, a driver who's no stranger to racing in the MRL. This is his, I think, 3rd season officially.
Yeah, Blind's not finishing out his lap, so it will be Moen next to cross the line, I believe.
Big shout out to Vexit earlier today with the raid, and we have, of course, Mr. Driver DNB coming through with a raid as well. Thank you so much to everybody for the support and everyone hitting that follow button. It's greatly appreciated, as we have Moen now through 18. What's the time going to be? It's good for an improvement, near 2/10. He moves into 15th position.
Yeah, Undertaker right now on a flyer as well, and it looks like he's on for a fairly big improvement, and he does need to find some time here to get himself off of that back row of the grid. Currently on 131.5 to his name, and he'll want to chop off, well, realistically, a second to get into the point-paying positions here in qualifying. Obviously, no points for qualifying, but like we mentioned earlier, a good qualifying does just give you a better foothold in the race, and he's flying down through turn 12 into 13 now in the Alfa Romeo. Right now, no points throughout the season in the first 2 rounds for him. His teammate, though, does 30 points, so they are third in the constructors' standings. Coming through into the penultimate corner. Turn 17, nicely done into 18, and again, no problems through there, and it's P7 on 130.289, a 1.295 improvement. Huge time from him compared to the previous best.
This grid very tight right now, I have to say. All the way from 1st down to 14th position, 1.1 second is the gap. Super Noodlebagel in the other AlphaTauri will be looking to draw himself closer to his teammate in IDJ.
Yeah, currently in 15th at 130.9, and it is a little bit closer contested there. If he can get into the under the 130.5, so he will jump up into the top 10 just about, and there's a lot of drivers in that 130.5 region, and Fabry Flame and Tastus as well just ahead of Super Noodle here as he comes through into the final sector.
This is a very difficult turn as well. This left-right can really catch you out, especially on degraded tires, especially in any kind of pressure situation where you're under threat, you're defending. I've seen so many drivers struggle through that section, and now we come through to the line. It's good for 10th position. He does successfully jump ahead of DJ. Alberto Perez is flying. Tatsis in the Ferrari, he is also flying, and Shadrin in the Red Bull is flying as well.
Yeah, Polypunk up at the top too. Currently looks like he's on for an improvement of 1,000, so I'm sure he's hoping for a little bit more in Sector 3 here. The Ferrari coming through into the final corner. We'll see if he goes faster, and he does by 1.5 tenths near enough. So 129.673, the new provisional pole, 3 tenths clear of Daz, his championship rival. They're only separated by 5 points, and well, if it was to finish like this, they would be separated by 2.
Shadrin, 15th quickest here, he moves himself out of the back end. Jones begins a lap. Tatsis begins a lap. I thought he was flying earlier, but well, he had an issue. I guess he's invalidated previous and his present run. Kane is on the move. Fabry has begun. Alberto started. There's been a retirement in the pit lane for Mr. Undertaker. He's done. He's happy with that 30.289.
Yeah, not a bad time from him, and you know, not a lot of time left in the session now, as I think the checkered flag will be waved in about 30 seconds ish. Obviously, the DC gets finished for us, but for the drivers, I think it is just a little bit of time left to get onto their flying laps.
It's all come down to this qualifying session now coming to its final moments. The gap from first down to 14th, where Fabry sits, 1.1. Alberto Perez now to the line. What is the improvement for him? He does not find any improvement, so 30.507 is where he will land. Super Noodle Bagel as well, also taking that checkered flag here. Shadrin pops through into 10th. Very nicely done.
Here comes Kane. A little bit of a correction through the penultimate corner. He does find 2 tenths, but it's not enough to improve on his position. He's still P4 right now, just behind his teammate who's about to set his final lap of the session. It's a 129.9 to beat, and he does. He goes fast to 129.490. Does Disaster have anything to do about that? Big Tabina comes home in third. A 129.8 for the Red Bull. Here comes the Alfa Romeo. He will be next across the line, and he's got quite a strong lap to beat. Can he find it here through the final corner? He comes, and he almost does it. 6 thousandths behind Tricksam there. Polypunk absolutely robbed in the last few moments by Tricksam and Disaster, who will find themselves on the front row unless any of the remaining drivers have anything to say about it. Lars goes P6 at 130 flat from him. And now DJ is going to call his lap off and straight into the pits for him.
Well, things really tightened up in the end there. We look back to four-door sedan now, 1.155, the gap from him all the way to first position, where Tricksam is now sitting in that top slot, 6 milliseconds ahead of Disaster, and Polypunk, who has taken 2 out of 3 pole positions here now in as many rounds. Well, I have to say, he almost had 3 for 3, but the Alfa Romeo and the McLarens had something to say about it. Wow, what a session.
Yeah, very, very close up at the top, and those front two, that last, that lap coming in at the last moment, maybe the track evolution there helped them out a little bit, because like you said, Polypunk has been very quick in qualifying. He was very quick throughout this qualifying, but then in the dying moments gets beaten by, 1.5, 2 tenths. It's a little bit surprising to see that, but all credit to Tricksam and Disaster there for getting themselves onto that front row, and there's not a lot between them, but it is the McLaren on pole just ahead of the Scott in the Alfa Romeo there. But, well, close qualifying, Jeff, we've seen it time and time again, usually leads into a very, very entertaining close fight in the real race.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely does, and I think that Russia, a circuit characteristically that is going to provide us with a very, very intense race. I think that there's going to be a good, healthy amount of overtaking opportunities in this race compared to what we saw last week in the Netherlands. And even in the Netherlands, we saw these drivers taking risks. So, well, welcome to round 3. It's the Russian Grand Prix. My name is Strifium. Joining me is Unicorn, and we're here for the Tier 4 action. And what a qualifying session this was as we come through to Sochi for now our 50% distance racing campaign. Now, this is the first of 7 races this week. We have the Americas Tier 2 division later this evening at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight, which is 2 a.m. for those of our friends in the UK and 3 a.m. in Central Europe. But it is great action. And if you can't catch the action, you can catch any of our race replays, any of our race condensed highlights. They are all on our YouTube channel. And I'm happy to say, all of our highlights from all races in the past 2 rounds are there now. YouTube in the chat. But now, all drivers, race strategies, fuel loads, Unicorn, it is time. Everyone is getting set up. 30 seconds now on the clock, counting down.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, we've said this before, but Tier 4, obviously, always the first race of the week. They don't get to see, what strategies work. They are sort of the guinea pigs kind of for the other divisions. And obviously, the combined constructors, these guys will discuss with their teammates afterwards what worked and what didn't in the race setting. And obviously, safety cars can play a role in that too. But ultimately, at this point, everything's been in a test environment, whether it's been a race, time trial, whatever. Now it's the real thing. The game is suggesting a soft medium one stop or a soft hard one stop. I imagine it will be a one stop for the soft mediums or to the medium softs for most people. But you can see even outside the top 10, softs are here in full force.
Yeah.
Only 4 drivers opting for the mediums. That's Shadrin, IDJ, Moen, and Blind. As Alberto Perez and Shadrin appear to have come together already. They've been reset to the back of the grid, and we haven't seen that too much in the new game.
No, we
so
really
I wonder
haven't.
what they've done to have caused that.
Yeah, we haven't seen too many issues on formation in races. We've had 14 races now. This will be the 15th race of Season 5 now in the MRL, and I think that might be just the second or maybe even the third instance where we've seen a coming together on formation. But Trick Sam, Disaster, Polypunker, top 3, Big Turbina there in 4th, and it's Kane in the other McLaren rounding out the top 5. Of course, Lars, 6th position, Grenade in 7th, Jones in 8th, with Fred LaRouge in 9th, Undertaker rounding out the top 10, and then you see Shadrin there, as we previously mentioned, he's on the medium compound tires. He's one of 4 drivers to start this race on the yellow walled compound. You have Super Noodle Bagel there, 12th position in the Alpha Tauri. Oh, this race is really going to be heated up in a second. Alberto Perez, he came together with Shadrin. He's on those softs. He's in 13th position for this race start. The other AlphaTauri, DJ, opting for the medium compound here. Fabry Flame, 15th position. Softs with him, 4-door, and Tatsis in 17th position. And then we have Moen and Blind on the back row. It's going to be a very intense race here. Everyone trying to get some temperature into their tires on this formation lap. I'm not sure how I feel about majority driver going softs. I don't know, 4 drivers outside of that top 10 going on these mediums. A very interesting call. I think it's a bit of a gamble to be on the softs, but everyone in this grid very tight, we saw. So track position up for grabs all over the place.
Yeah, I think a well-timed safety car here for those medium runners is really what they're going to need to get sort of into this race properly. Obviously, the reverse strategy does work elsewhere, but here with everyone else on the softs, just those 4 drivers on the mediums, they are going to struggle, I think, but we'll see how it plays into the hands. Like we said, they are the first race of the week, and we haven't seen the strategies play out in full here.
No, definitely not. And of course, now all drivers coming to the grid blind, the last of which to do so, as we will get our lights on and ready to go racing here in Sochi. It is 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights here in Russia. A little bit of desync for these racers, but we are hearing these engines go live, and now we are lights out and racing in Sochi, nearly 2, 3 wide as we come through into turn 1 right now. It's a good break for the majority of these racers. Kane looking already here with Grenade. Well, what's happened here? Disaster and Trixam, a little bit of desync between the pair of them. Super Noodle Bagel, Turbina have an exchange right now as they're wheel to wheel. Jones is there with Lars. Disaster on the rear of Trixam, hold out for the lead right now, and Fred LaRouge has come out worse for wear as he drops to the rear of this grid.
And not quite sure what happened to the Alpine there, but turns 1, 2, and 3, all very, very clean. And in Russia, that can be very hard to do on the opening lap. A few shuffling in positions. Fabry Flame is up 5 places into 10. And Grenade Goran, leader of the championship, up 3 places already on the opening lap, up into 4th. So the Haas driver has done very nicely there, taking advantage of, Big Tabina. He's dropped 4, and of course, Fred LaRouge out from 9th all the way down to the bottom of this field as they come down this back straight now. Still a couple of tight gaps. Undertaker maybe looking to get one back on Fabry Flame. Not able to get the lunge there, though. Down into turn 13.
Blind and Alberto Perez with a little bit of a shake. Shadrin, he's with, of course, Tatsis in this Ferrari, and everyone in formation, everyone in this train, as you will. Fabry Flame, he's had an issue. He's gone into the wall. I think he cooked it on exit. Looking for damage right now. Nothing visible.
Well, it's such a good race start for him, and now he's thrown that all away with the incident now. Obviously now down into 19th place. As no DRS yet means not too much action going on into turn 2. Big Tabina, already a 3-second time penalty on the board for the Red Bull. You don't want to be doing that this early on in the race. As there's a problem for Canet. What's happened here for the McLaren? He's into the wall. He's got no front wing, and he's just reversed onto the track. I don't think that was reverse. I think he just rolled backwards there. Couldn't do anything. He stopped as quickly as he could, but still clipped there, I think, by a Williams as Big Tabina and Super Noodle Bagel. Big Tabina going very slowly here in the Red Bull. That end plate missing on the left-hand side, yeah. Really costing him here. Lets his teammate through nice and easily. He's going to fight Alberto Perez a little bit, but Aston Martin uses a little bit of track limits to find a way around the outside. I think he might have got given illegal overtake there by the game. He will, though, drive it out of turn 10 and absolutely destroy the Red Bull on exit. And I think Blind is going to have something to say about this as well. The Williams now coming through, and, well, Big Tabina, that damage is really costing him here as the Hassan might have a look up the inside. Doesn't go for the lunge there. But my, oh my, what a poor lap from him, and that wing damage. Well, you have to get a change here, otherwise it's going to drop too far back. As there goes Moen through, and when someone's overtaking you through 15 and 16 and making it look that easy, you know there's a problem. Yeah,
definitely. You just can't hold out with that kind of damage on the front end. You're just dropping, as we say, like a stone through this grid. DRS is, of course, enabled now as well. Disaster, tight to the rear of Trixam into turn 2. Nothing doing just yet. The trigger has not been pulled. Undertaker looking for Super Noodle Bagel, and we have some tight intervals here, some tight duels, where we could see a little bit of exchanging lap after lap with the utilization of these DRS zones. But of course, you don't want to be fighting too much. If you fight too much, well, you're going to get caught. And Disaster knows that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that, last week, of course, with, the Netherlands. Breakaways possible here as well. The front two, they were very, very quick in qualifying. If they can work together here, they can, use that pace, and they are breaking away a little bit. Polypunk just in the DRS here is having to use ERS. Disaster is going to go for leader things, though, and does get P1 here from Trixam. But this is causing Polypunk to just get back within range. Undertaker, Super Noodle Bagel are exchanging. Undertaker, it's 2 overtakes to the Alfa Romeo squads here as Moen goes past on Blind down into 13. Again, just clear-cut, easy moves that are allowed by that DRS.
Yeah, that DRS, especially in Sector 2, well, realistically, it's even more powerful, I think, into turn 2. Blind with a bit of a snap right now. He's exposed to four-door sedan. The soft's a bit of a quicker tire right now. Four-door sedan. He has his reserve teammate of Fred LaRouge parking up that inside. I think four-door wanted to maybe shake off, go for a break, go for a move there, and it just didn't work out for him. Things really tight up at the front, but no overtakes being primed just yet as four-door and Blind have their exchange into turn 2. Four-door on the outside. Fred LaRouge on the rear of them taking a penalty as he's fighting with DJ. DJ on the inside. That's 15 and 16. Wheel to wheel. There's a big snap. Oh, and Fred LaRouge, I have to say, how fortunate is he? The Aston Martin of Fabry Flame full throttling it, coming out of turn 3 there, nearly getting collected, and that was a heart and mouth moment.
Oh, and who's that? Grenade Goran Strips just lost it out of turn 8 through into 9, and just the car looked like it just completely went from underneath him. Doesn't look like there's any damage on the Haas, but championship leader drops to 9th place. That is not what I was expecting to see. And Shadrin might come through as well. Disaster and Tricksam exchange again, but my goodness, this is sounds to be quite the campaign. Grenade late on the brakes.
Oh,
and
whoa.
There's a bit of contact. I think Shadrin might have been tapped from the rear, though. I'm not sure.
I don't know what happened there. It looked like he jumped off the brake. He kind of coasted. I don't know if he had a bit of a boost from the rear there or not, as you mentioned, but that was a very interesting situation. Grenade, I don't know if he made contact with the rear of Tatsis either. Very wild racing. Very wild racing. Lars Jones. It's that DRS straight into 2. You have so much fighting ability with the rear wing open that way. And, well, Undertaker right now, look at the work that these Alfa Romeos are doing. 6th position for him, 2nd for his teammate Disaster. They're making some good moves today. Moen and Fordor fighting.
When you look at what, we saw from qualifying, you had 2 McLarens in the top 5. You've now got the Alfa Romeos 2 and 6 with Kane down in 19th. He's got 1 point on the board over the first 2 rounds, and it looked like he could have scored a few more here from qualifying. Tastis and Super Noodle Bagler exchanging with Grenade. Goran and Shadrin having a look at this as well. Grenade Goran got a little bit greedy and has opened up the inside for Shadrin there to just let the Red Bull through, and I think there's been contact. Alberto Perez and Grenade Goran. Grenades come off worse in that one, facing the wall. I think he kept it out of it, but the Haas looking very, very unfortunate here. He's got another Aston Martin behind him now. It's Fabry Flame who's just going to breeze on through. Really no trick there, and although he might have backed out here because he just hasn't found the straight line speed on Grenade.
A lot of these drivers are getting... If you look at the tires, we're only on lap 5, right? We're about to cross into 6. There it is, Trick Sam crossing over the line, and he's got Disaster barking up his rear. You look at how much action we've had already in this race. Here's Alberto Perez. He doesn't have visible damage. He's coming into the pit lane. He'll be now the 3rd driver in this race to do so. Trick Sam Disaster. I thought there was going to be a move, and there it is. Whoa, a big tap. Disaster's looking the wrong way. I don't know what to say about that one, but Disaster has now dropped into 5th position. Trick Sam, it appeared there was just a tap on exit. I'm not sure about that. Polypunk in the Ferrari has something to say as he wants to keep with this. Less than half a second for the red Ferrari, just pushing, hunting this McLaren. It's gone from one shade of red to the other.
And it's unfortunate to see, Disaster here putting on a championship fight. Will be hungry to get those positions back. Polypunk, though, also in that chasing pack, and he's going to go for a move here for lead of the race, and he's going to find it as well. Breezes through on the McLaren there of Tricksam. As easy as you like, up the inside. Goes a little deep, but able to defend from the McLaren, although Tricksam might have a look into 15. Thinks better of it. There was an exchange further back as well. Tastis gets past Undertaker for 6th place.
Yeah, things looking good right now as Polypunk moves into lead of things. His teammate Tatsis, he's now between the 2 Alfa Romeos and Disaster. I imagine he's got a very large axe to grind with Trick Sam after whatever may have occurred there. 4-door Sedan's had an issue. Super Noodle Bagel is on his way into the pit lane.
Yeah, 4-door sedan, just that little spin we've seen time and time again out of 16, it would seem. I don't think there was another car involved. It didn't look like it, but we've seen, just the lightest taps that have sent cars spinning round facing the wrong direction.
Looking at this fight right now for lead of the race, it's a good fight. the Ferrari, the McLaren, 7/10 separating them. A little bit of an extension maybe coming out of Polypunk, but these DRS zones make things difficult. Does Trick Sam have a look? I don't think he's close enough to have a look here, but of course, lap 7 of 27, lots of potential for a very competitive grid.
And Polypunk just used a little bit of battery there just to keep Trick Sam at bay. They're pretty even on that front right now, but like you said, Polypunk just seems to be getting away a little bit here. Obviously, the straights, the DRS does pull the McLaren back in onto him, but right now, Polypunk through that second sector looking very comfortable. And if you can pull a 1 second gap, it is hard because obviously you don't have a lot of time before the next DRS zone. As Disaster is going to look for Lars into turn 1. He's got a brilliant run here coming out of the final corner. Through turn 1 they go, and he's almost side by side coming out of it, and he will go through way before turn 2. And the Alfa Romeo up into 4th place, hunting back down for the podium positions. He was on for a potential win with how he was faring up. He was in that fight for P1. Now down in 4th, but fighting his way back through the grid. Can he get back to the front before the end of this one? He's got a lot of work to do so. His teammates under a little bit of pressure right now. The Red Bull of Shadrin is hunting down Undertaker there for that 7th place, and they've got Tastis not too far up the road in 6th as well. Pit stops, they're going to come into full swing soon. And strategy, well, that's going to be important as it is every single race. Fred LaRouge, 3-second time penalty to go next to the Alpine Reserve.
Yeah, I was just taking a look. You mentioned Shadrin and Undertaker right there. You have that soft medium differential. You're talking about pit stops. Now, just behind them, not only do you have this battle for soft medium, and we're actually going to see Shadrin now. Look at this. To the inside now. Ooh, it's tight. It's tight. A little bit of wobbling there coming out of both drivers. I think everyone's just trying to get themselves as tight as they possibly can. Undertaker on the inside with the switchback opportunity back through. Shadrin wanting to hold on to 7th position right now. Look at this lunge on the inside from Undertaker. Things are still wheel to wheel through Sector 3. Now we're coming through into the penultimate turn. Undertaker still holding this position with everything he's got. And now there's maybe a slight tap there. I wasn't sure if there was clear-cut contact, but Undertaker, what a hold in 7th, and he's really held up Shadrin in this soft runner train to the drivers ahead. And I was about to mention, look at this, there's just so much speed with that DRS. There's not an answer at this point for Undertaker, but he's cost Shadrin damage. And I was going to talk about the fight that's happening for 9th between Moen and DJ. That's heating up, and it's medium versus medium between these two, whereas we just saw that medium runner, he's breaking into the softs, and then behind them you had Grenade on these softs. He's losing time to the mediums of DJ, and DJ's fighting. So it's time.
Yeah, Moen there just looked a little shaky coming through turn 3, so IDJ might be able to find some way through here. The Haas just looks very twitchy in front of the Alpha Tauri here for, they are the low scoring points right now, but if the reverse strategy works out here with the incidents we've seen for some of the other drivers, they might be able to capitalize and make some points here. It's four-door sedan. It's not the first time we've seen the Alpine facing the wrong way. And the other Alpine, Fred LaRouge, well, he had a spin not too long after we mentioned his 3-second time penalty. So
a little bit of an exchange here. DJ is going to be on the outside of Moen. Moen with a good hold on the inside. I wasn't able to get the appropriate view, but I have to say Moen doing work now. But he goes wide. DJ wants to slip through on the inside. He gets it through in on there. And he gets himself into 9th position. Yeah, very nice there. He got himself through on the inside. Moen went deep. He takes advantage. Now we have a pit stop, and it's coming from Disaster. So this is huge. This is the first soft runner, realistically, from a major podium striking position to come in, to switch over the rubber. It's mediums now for him. Here's Moen looking for another way through on DJ. Nothing doing just yet, but Disaster, what is the call for Polypunk and Trick Sam? Do they have enough of an insurance to go out and stay another lap? Do they want to go and try to respond to this? Because Jones, 5.1 seconds off the rear of those guys. Disaster, he was in trouble at one point in this race.
Yeah, and to a certain extent he is. I think this is a little bit of a gamble here. Try and undercut the leaders. Just that little bit to try and bring himself ever closer to the front fight again. Try and bring everything he's got to get into that podium fight. He was P4 when he came in, if I'm not mistaken, and he had built a very nice gap to Lars behind. He's on the rear of four-door sedan here. If he times this right, he'll get DRS down into turn 13, and that would be, ideal for him, and he will have that. So there will be time to be gained here on this in lap here, whereas the leaders, we'll see what they do. They are going to come in. They are going to cover the pit stop here from the Alfa Romeo. We'll see whether Jones is coming in. He is. Lars is going to follow suit. And Tastis, well, he's staying out. He's going another lap in the Ferrari. Undertaker, well, his teammate isn't in, so he's free to pit now. Unlike Tastis, who obviously has Polypunk in the pit lane.
Yeah.
And Tastis, the reserve tonight. Where is, in all of this, Disaster? I can't find him on my time. Is that?
Grenade, an easy opportunity here to move through on his teammate, and Moen 2.7 and dropping the gap to Polypunk behind. We'll see if Moen's able to give a little bit of a fight to any of these drivers that are looking to come behind. He's on a different strategy.
I'll tell you, speaking of strategy shift, the undercar has not worked for Daz. He's come out behind Jones, not by much, and well, he might have only lost a little bit of time, but Lars is certainly closer than he was when they went in. So I think this has ultimately lost Daz a little bit of time, but not too much that it will be crippling. But by the end of this race, the one lap all the tires, we'll see if that has any impact on what we see at the end. As a yellow flag up ahead. It's Trixam. He's out.
That is a retirement coming through in Sector 2. And not only is it a retirement, but we have a safety car deployment on lap 11. And this is really going to hurt some of these racers. Man.
Well, Tastis can come in now under the safety car. I think he will lose positions to the likes of Polypunk and Jones, who have just come in. But, it's not an awful time. Grenade, Gorin, he'll take full advantage of this. He needs this to help recover. DJ looks like he's coming in. What tires is he going to go for, I wonder? Hards to the end would work, of course, but they would be slower. Softs to the end, well, that's not going to happen, I don't think. So it'll be an interesting call from the Brit to see what he goes on to. Shadrin has stayed out here. Polypunk, of course, retakes lead of the race. His teammate for the evening, Tastis, is on his way out of the pit lane, but Jones is going to get him. And Disaster, well, this is a brilliant bit of redemption and great timing for him. Now the undercut does work a little bit because the Alfa Romeo is up into, well, provisionally third place, given that Shadrin hasn't yet pitted. So he is back onto the provisional podium, and he'll be happy about that, and it will close the gap to the front runners. So he's back in that fight for the win. And, well, it's exactly the lifeline he needed throwing after the incident earlier on in the race, Drift.
Yeah, I think you're right. It really does give him a second wind, if you will. Coming through here, it gives him that energy to kind of, okay, we're really back in this fight. It's not as much of a comeback. It's not as much of a mountain climb as it was. He's into more of a realistic position where it's about the pace and it's a lot easier to manage. He's on one lap older tires, but as we saw with him in the Netherlands last week, he's a driver quite capable on worn rubber. Now, that said, there's a lot of fast guys behind him. There's going to be situations where I imagine he'll be under pressure, and this is only lap 12 out of 27 here, and we're under safety car conditions. And what better opportunity to bring up potential safety cars further in the race than under a certain, under a current safety car, because they always can present those situations, those scenarios where we've seen these restarts. Okay, we think back very, very short time ago to a race restart in Tier 2 in the Netherlands. Look at Russia. Russia is not a circuit that has the most ideal Sector 3 for a restart. It's tight. It's compact. There's drivers having issues with their tires getting brakes could be cold. And then you have this very long run into Turn 2. Things might get shaken up.
Yeah, and one thing, that we might see in this, restart, like you say, obviously we saw Tier 2 as the case. Turn 1 here, sorry, is, you know, a very fast corner, but we sometimes see, you know, just that little mistake cause a little bit of crash on the outside, and turn 2 as well, very tight. So you've got 2 potential places for and then turn 3 and 4 as well. This first sector can cause problems here. You're seeing a couple of drivers come into the pits now. That's blind. They're getting off of the hards, just cycling onto some softs. I'm surprised he's gone for softs and not mediums. They might still struggle to get to the end of the race. I think he should just be able to make it, but it will be a stretch for those tires, and looking to, you know, try and gain some positions in the same way. IDJ in 9th. If he can make those softs last, well, it's going to be tough, especially if he's intending on overtaking the cars ahead of him. But if he does make it work, well, that AlphaTauri is going to fly and is on for some potential points here to add to his 6 total already this season.
Look at the position changes, of course. Just some heavy winners here on position changes. Fytron and Atsis up 10 slots each.
And I think you can, for Tatstis, you can consider that sort of 11, because well, Shadrin's got to pit. Tatstis here really run a good race. You've got to say he's obviously taken full advantage there of the safety car, and obviously Polypunk coming in the lap before kind of allowed Tatstis to, you know, or forced Tatstis into that, and Polypunk, as we mentioned him, disconnect right as the safety car is coming in. This could cause big problems for him.
Yeah, it could create huge problems. Not only can it create huge problems for him, but the entirety of the grid, as that AI car is now on the grid. Fytron here. Oh, I hope we can get him back quick. That would be nice. Safety car is in. Polypunk's back. We might get a timing tower desync here if he joins back, but I'd rather that than a big crash. All right, we're away going now. Green flag racing. Jones on the rear of Polypunk. Surely there's going to be an exchange, as that car is AI controlled, and man, oh man, is the AI ever given him a squeeze. But that is now Polypunk rejoining. Disaster on the rear end of Jones as we come into turn 1. Polypunk is there. Things getting a little bit loose between these drivers now. Polypunk clearly cut back in control of that car on the inside of Disaster through 3. He is going to have that 3rd position, but he's already lost 1. Super Noodle Bagel with the front row seat and the look at the action. One driver we need to check in with, DJ. How's he looking? He's got these fast softs. 9th position in this grid right now. Tight to the rear of Undertaker, but a pretty calm, collected restart here so far, with a bit of an issue for Polypunk.
Yeah, obviously unfortunate that he's lost the position there, but he's lucky, you know, the AI hasn't done anything else, you know, caused the crash and, you know, lost him out on huge potential points here. So, you know, great that he was able to get back into control of that car as quickly as he did, but obviously for him, he will be annoyed that he's lost out on P2 there on the restart, and obviously he'll be thinking, well, maybe I could have gone for a move into turn 2 on Shadrin, given the tire differential here. I think we'll see Jones now take lead of things. Obviously no DRS yet, but I think the straight line speed, the good exit out of the final corner will afford, will give the Red Bull a bit of a headache from the Mercedes behind, and Polypunk and Disaster as well. Well, they're going to be looking for potential places as well. Super Noodle Bagel looking like he's dropping off a bit from the front runners, and those tires are a little older as well. 7 laps compared to 3 or 4, depending on who you look at in that top 6. Here we go then, down into turn 1. Do we see any movement? Jones isn't going to go for anything. Polypunk's not going for it, and Disaster's too far back to do anything out of Ferrari. Moen is going to have a little bit of pressure from four-door sedan, but the Haas keeps it around the outside of 2, and Alberto Perez is going to take full advantage. The door swings open for the Aston Martin, and he goes through on four-door sedan.
Yeah, good opportunity taken there from Alberto Perez. He's looking now at Moen as well, down the outside of 5. Does he hold this? It's mediums versus hards. I think he will. A very neat move there from the Aston Martin. We push things back on over to the front 3 as Polypunk, well, he dropped that position due to the desync and the disconnection on the safety car restart. He has a potential opportunity to take that back as Kanay struggles. It's the other McLaren having issues. Blind and Turbina exchanging. Undertaker. IDJ on the softs doing some work, moving into 8th. And do we ever have a ton of action to talk about here on the restart? You love to see it. All of these tight battles. 4-door and Moen They're having a fight still. Moen holding on against Fordor, and look at the time that it's costing them to Alberto Perez. Nearly 2 seconds already is the gap.
Oh, and Fordor's today caught that sausage cup on the inside with his rear tire, and his teammate for the evening, Fred LaRouge, is going to take that up the inside, and he's going to leave that as Trick Samuel. He leaves after his teammate. Like, he's such a better position.
Shadrin, not a lot he can do to defend against this. PW Jones moves in to lead of the race. Disaster on the rear of Polypunk was having a look. He gets off, but he's not done with this Ferrari by any means.
Yeah, definitely hungry for the position, but not going to take risks there into turn 4. Again, Moen fending off an Alpine. This time it's Fred LaRouge who goes for a very optimistic lunge into turn 4. Again, though, the hards finding traction around the outside. Moen doing very well to hold on to this position, but Fred LaRouge, another lunge from him. He's having a few problems with traction, and he's had another one here.
Oh my!
Spin.
Oh,
no
that is huge. That is huge, and there's a car
straight
coming.
At Kane.
Oh my!
And there's a problem behind as well.
Yeah,
Blind is losing his car.
It was Blind. We saw just in the view, his car came through that turn rearwards. Polypunk now Shadrin. There's an overtake primed there and done and dusted for the Ferrari. Disaster wants to move through next, and he can't take too much time on the rear of this Red Bull. Polypunk, I think, getting it done, coming through into this Sector 3 here is a very good opportunity to pull a gap over Disaster. Shadrin, he's just sitting here, and he drove. That was an interesting line on the way into the pit lane there, I have to say.
Yeah, Jones first lap of the race here, getting through. Polypunk just within DRS range. Disaster, though, has dropped off of these two quite substantially. He is looking like he needs to get some work in to catch back up. Full fight of leader thinks he needs to be in that DRS range. We've seen how powerful it is. He doesn't want to lose out here. He's still got DRS stats from behind. IDJ still looking strong on these softs. We've seen him make a couple of moves already. He's up into 7th place. He started before the restart in 9th. Now on the rear of Tastis for 6th place.
Yeah, some really good battles unfolding in this grid right now. Consistency is starting to prove very crucial here as the tires degrade as well. Some of these drivers not having the best situations. Blind, he calls it into the pit lane. Fred LaRouge in the pit lane, maybe getting something fixed up there as the grid's still super tight through Sector 2. Polypunk, DRS on the rear wing. Does he have an opportunity? Not enough of a gap just yet to do anything about it. Meanwhile, Lars, well, he's going to shoot through on Super Noodle Bagel. And Grenade Goran just behind them has DJ. What a move from DJ here. A little bit of contact. He's got some good traction, though. Oh, Grenade. 7th position. You see DJ. He wants to get Tatsis. He's being held up a bit, maybe. Grenade wanting to get through. It's a good hold from DJ.
He's done well by Grenade, you know, sending around the outside like that. Disaster sets fastest up of the race to catch back up with leaders. Here goes Polypunk on Jones for leader. Thinks the Ferrari up into P1, and this is important for his championship run. Jones, though, in P2, still holding on. Super Noodle, Tastis are exchanging the other Ferrari under a bit of pressure. There's contact between the two. Super Noodle does well to hold it. His teammate, though, is looking for it on the inside of 3. And it's very, very tight here between the two. The softs, though, should have fought a little bit of extra traction. Super Noodle later on the brakes just holds it on the inside compared to his teammate. And here comes Grenade. He is really looking for a way through on IDJ and finds one this time. The championship leader hungry for not one but 2 AlphaTauris, because he's going to take Super Noodle, who breaks very late and uses all of the off track. And now IDJ comes back on Grenade, fights it, but oh, he's spun round. Car's doing very well to avoid the spun car.
Oh my God!
Straight into him, and IDJ
no!
And Fordor's got it to him.
That is a safety car, most definitely coming through Sector 2. Big Turbina flat out into his sister car. It's a Red Bull colliding with an AlphaTauri here, and DJ on lap 18 of this race is now terminally out of this race. And I have to say, he was on quite a good race as well, fighting there for 5th, 6th position. That's bad luck for him. Bad luck for him. Polypunk's on the way in. Jones stays out. And the safety car is waiting to collect everybody outside of turn 2.
Yeah, surprising. Polypunk coming in from neither things. Is there damage on that Ferrari? There's not. It's soft to the end for him. He can make this work, but the position's lost. This is not good for him. He has got a real shift to put in unless there is another safety car. I don't think this was the right call, Schiff.
No, I think you're right here. I don't see the logic behind that call.
He was in first, so he has to, you know, predict what everyone else does. So he is in the trickiest spot, but it's so tough. I mean, if everyone else had done it behind him, obviously he would have been in a really bad place, but, well, no one else has, apart from those who were further down. And now, well, he finds himself in 9th place.
That was a really, really bad crash there, and I have to say I'm shocked that Big Turbina found himself able to carry on after that, given the damage wasn't enough to terminally retire his car, but DJ's.
It's, you know, we've seen this, you know, before, where unless you get direct contact onto that wheel, I think with Turbina there hitting it straight on, he's just avoided losing, you know, one of the wheels, breaking that suspension. Instead just comes away with a broken front wing.
Well,
and
there's no chance
bring
for
it back to the
DJ
pits.
in that situation because
He was hit straight on the wheel.
Yeah.
That suspension was done as soon as the contact happened. But yeah, it just seems, you know, again, the damage seems to be a little inconsistent with what we're seeing inside the car. It's very precise, it would seem, in which part of the wheel constitutes it. And if you have a front wing, it pretty much reduces your chance of retiring a lot, because if that's there to take the brunt of the impact, it seems you can get away with things.
Yeah, definitely. Well, unfortunately now 3 drivers out of this race. 19 began the campaign. We're on lap 19, soon to be 20, and we have 16 drivers left with us. No one else coming into the pit lane here. This is such a shuffle, such a shake-up of how things were going. We look at the position changes. Tatsis has made up 13 slots in this campaign.
And it's been an impeccable drive from him to gain those positions. He really hasn't stepped a foot wrong. He's made, you know, the right calls at every moment. And with Disaster with a 3-second time penalty shift, he could be on for a podium here in that Ferrari. He is only a reserve, of course, but still, you know, those points, he'll be happy to get them for himself.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt, he'll be happy with that. And we're going to have more than likely 7 laps to the end here, as we will be going green flag racing if my assumption is on point. Lap 21.
Yeah, and well, there's not too much, you know, too many more laps left in the race after that. And as such, you know, there is overtaking opportunities, but you know, in terms of huge position gains, you don't tend to see that in short spaces here unless you've got a huge tire advantage. So maybe Polypunk can do something, but I don't know if he's going to get back to the podium position he was sitting in before this safety car, especially with the few laps you got left. DRS, that's the real kicker here.
Yeah.
It makes overtaking so easy, but obviously that means that the car behind has an easier job as well. So we'll just see how it goes. Safety car is in, like you said. And well, with that, there'll be 6 laps of racing. We'll just see how they end.
Well, I'm very much excited to see how it goes to the end. Polypunk, let us hear in the chat if you are rooting for the Ferrari in 9th as he tries to hunt down a very, very large deficit to lead of this race.
Well, here we go. Jones coming through the penultimate corner. He hasn't hammered down yet, but he's gone now. And I think that might have caught Disaster out a little bit, but he's almost lost it out of the final corner. So did Daz. And oh my goodness, these guys struggling to get the traction down on the safety car restart. Tastis looking are the most likely to make a move right now. Down into turn 2. Grenade Goran on the rear of Super Noodle as well, looking for P5 here. He's going to go for it in the Haas, but Super Noodle super late on the brakes there down into turn 2. Kanei.
Oh my god! Undertaker straight into the wall on the exit of turn 2. That front wing is gone.
That's not the first front wing we've seen lost in all of this, and well, not too many position gains up and down the grid yet. Also worth pointing out, so if Kanei didn't take advantage of the safety car there, he did get a lot of positions back, but he's on 8-lap-old softs. Those are going to struggle to get to the end of the race. He's just gone for one last-ditch effort to get some points for the team. His teammates out. He was running in 18th, I think, before the safety car, or somewhere in and around there. So I think his only over points in his mind was just going out, staying on the softs that might not make it to the end, but if they do, they'll stay there.
Grenade and Tatsis right now, we're seeing them continue their fight for 4th position. Lars getting a little bit loose in front of them. Tatsis is seeing that. Everything very tight on the restart, surely, as can be expected. And Polypunk, he hasn't been able to really fly through where he wants to.
Yeah, P3 heavily contested right now, and that's good news for Daz because he's now getting a little bit of break. That 3-second time penalty feeling less and less bad by the second. Here goes Grenade again, looking for Tastis down into turn 2, but Lars is there as well. He's just not able to find the space to give him the confidence to go for the move. Big Tabina and Fred down in 13th. They're exchanging. The Alpine coming out on top after all is said and done there. Back up to the final podium position, though, as Undertaker's out. He has called it in the pit lane. He was quite a way down as Polypunk Kanei. Well, that's not the first time a McLaren has had an issue, and he reverses it into the wall, coming out of turn 4 to get out of the way of everyone else running through. And that looks like it's points over for the McLaren squad, because those tires are not making it to the end now, I shouldn't think.
No, I think you're right there. I think it'll be another case of retirement in the pit lane. Super Noodle Bagel. Oh my god.
Reversed into him.
That was
a very exactly the same place.
These guys are doing some practicing of some kind. It's not necessarily Formula 1 racing, but if they were in any kind of I'm not, we're just going to drop it. Yeah, let's keep it going. Those guys doing some work over there in the off-road. Let's move on now.
Well, let's fight for P3 is still very much on, and well, no one, again, not making it in positions. Polypunk, though, now on the rear of it. And we'll see whether he can do anything. Obviously, Tastis is a reserve. If he wasn't, he might have some sort of team dynamics come into play here to allow Polypunk to maybe go and threaten ahead.
Disaster now for the lead. He's going to push through on Jones, and there it is, the Alfa Romeo into lead of the race, albeit 3 seconds to him on the penalties. And so he'll need to push that gap in what is a massive train. Tatsis has, of course, Grenade on his rear end, and Polypunk, his teammate you mentioned. We'll have to see if any kind of team dynamics come out. But reserve capacity, not always likely. The Pirates like to get points. Kanei not retiring the car. He's come out. Super Noodle Bagel and him are quite close.
Yeah, it's not too long now. We've only got a few laps left in this campaign, and well, we're not seeing the overtaking that we're merely expected on the back of the safety car race. Obviously, there has been some. There has been no shortage of action, but up at the front here, obviously, Disaster has taken P1, but that's with the 3-second penalty. Here goes Polypunk, finally taking advantage of these fresh softs, getting past Grenade Goran, the championship leader. Polypunk in 3rd place there. He is going to be looking very hungry. His teammate for the evening ahead in front of him, but that is a reserve, so there may not be team tactics as he nearly runs to the back of Tastis there. That was very, very close through 15. And I think both of them would have been holding their breath there, but they come out of it okay, and it's 4th and 5th right now for the Ferrari squad.
Truly, Polypunk is able to get it done here. I mean, look at the speed he's carrying on these tires. DRS wide open on the rear. He's going to just wave goodbye to his teammate here. Grenade Goran now looking to push through as well. Tatsis, he looks to defend him. There's a touch of contact. The hand goes up out of the Haas driver, but Grenade is through into 5th.
Yeah, and as we get to the later stages, moves get more and more ambitious because you just want a final point. How much do you risk? Because obviously you can't put too much on the line, because if you throw it all away, crash out of the race, well, that's no points. But you don't want to be left with the question, what if I had gone for that move? Could I have got more? Especially in these high scoring points.
Lars!
Round!
Oh my, is that ever fortunate for Polypunk to take just the precise evasive action that he needed. He is able to clear through there, and thankfully we did not have to see a repeat of the unfortunate incident that saw IDJ out of this race.
Yeah, and that gives Disaster one less person to worry about in terms of the 3-second time penalty, and right now he is still on the podium if it's to finish like this, as there's a lot of shuffling further down as Polypunk starts to just sort of trickle into... Polypunk, sorry. I'm getting everyone confused as Lars trickles in to where he sits. Disaster fastest up of the race. He is really pushing. He's broken the DRS to Jones behind. I think it's going to be too little too late. He's got very little left in the ERS tank as Kinne's had a problem, but can Disaster, with this pace, he's going very quick, Stu. Can he find 1.5 seconds to Jones and take this win? It's going to be close, I think.
It is going to be very close. And one thing that is also close is Tatsis on the rear of Grenade, holding off Shadrin. Shadrin through on the inside now of 3. Alberto Perez has the front row seat. It was, of course, Shadrin looking into turn 1 on Tatsis, but it just wasn't enough. And then he gets him through 3. A nice opportunity taken there for the soft runner. And you can see Alberto Perez charging down the rearview mirror of the Ferrari as well. Disaster. 3 seconds of penalties for him. He needs to clear out 3 seconds over Jones, or Jones is going to be winning this race.
Yeah, and he's caught back up nicely there, as there's another problem this time. Who's it for? It's Moen in the Haas, it would seem. And he's dropping. It doesn't look like there's any damage on the front of that car, but he's just lost 2 or 3 positions. Shadrin, can he find anything? Grenade, he's very close to the rear of the other Haas. And this race has not been short of drama as we come into the closing stages. We're about to cross onto the penultimate lap here. And Disaster hasn't found the time he needed on that lap. But it seems unlikely he'll find the time he needs in the last 2. And he's in danger as well of Polypunk slipping back under the 3-second window as well, because he's now in DRS range with these fresh softs. And Polypunk, when we thought this wasn't going to work, pitting out to the safety car, he might just find the race win. Shadrin on Grenade Goran down the inside into turn 2, just about finds his way through. Alberto Perez looking for it around the outside of 3 now. The door's opened, but around the outside of turn 3, and unless you've got a huge carrier speed, doesn't usually work, and he doesn't have enough. So he does stay in 6th place, but it is there to apply the pressure. Polypunk, though, gaining fast on Jones. And, well, if he can get through and stay within the 3 seconds of Disaster, that's great news. If this fight takes too much out of them in the last 2 laps, it's given Daz right now a huge gap. About half a second in the first sector alone. It's all a management game in these last few laps.
It really is, and I have to say it has been an actually, it's been a superlative drive, a superlative race. I've really enjoyed it. We've had the safety car strategy coming through. Here's Jones, here's Polypunk. There's an overtake coming out of the Ferrari. 6-lap-old softs, making it look easy. The exit, giving that Ferrari so much traction. Here's Shadrin and Grenade. They have their exchanges. Now Shadrin has Alberto Perez looking at Grenade. Tatsis, everyone's fighting. It's the second last lap. Disaster now coming through 17. Into turn 18 is going to kick us off for the final run. 31.9 coming out of Polypunk, the fastest lap of the race, and he's done that on 7-lap-old softs.
Yeah, it's brilliant, to see this from the Ferrari. Disaster, now he just needs to try and stick into P2, because Jones right now not too far away from that 3-second window. It's going to be close. Disaster, Jones, both in single digits on ERS. Polypunk dancing in and around that as well. These 2 are clear from the rest of the field, though. And it's the last lap. Lars, four-door sedan exchanging. It's the Williams going through into P10 after he dropped out of huge points here just moments ago. He might score a few here with the penalties ahead of him. He's in 10th place right now, so he's sets on course to get 1 point. Jones, a 3-second time penalty. Well, that's going to be a great pressure off of Daz's shoulders. And Jones, to be honest, it won't lose him anything, but it might just cost him going up in terms of points.
Yeah, I think it's 4 seconds, right? The gap between him and Shadrin, and that is just enough to hold Jones in the podium. We're going to be speaking to all of our podium finishers in just a few moments here as we round through the final sections of circuit. Grenade and Shadrin, they are having their exchange. Alberto Perez and Tatsis as well. Grenade holding with everything he can right now in this Haas. It's Disaster through into turn 17. Back to this for just a moment. Wow, what racing we're seeing here. Disaster will take the race win on track. However, Polypunk on the penalties will not secure, at the very least on our screen. Did something happen in the end there? I don't know. What happened? That's very odd.
Polypunk's got no penalties. I wonder whether that's some sort of desync because he disconnected under the safety car.
Could very well be. It's been seen before. But what a race. What an end. Disaster, Polypunk, Jones, our top three here. Polypunk and Disaster. I do believe it is Polypunk, the race winner here. But once again, 2 weeks in a row for Disaster. It would appear there's some kind of issue for him and his rival at the finish line here, Unicorn.
Yeah, and again, it's another race where, well, the win just taken out from under him. It's just so close for someone who's so consistent. P2 in the championship. I think now he will be, I think he'll still be P2, depending on how many points Grenade scored. He was up in that, I think so. He might drop to P3 here, lose out to Polypunk. Driver of the day goes to Tatsis, and well, I don't think we can argue with that. It was an awesome drive from the Ferrari, and you know that as a reserve there, he almost got on the penalty. It looked like he could have done on the podium. Sorry, penalties on my mind, but it looked like he could have done it at one point in that race. P5 though, and an awesome drive from him to come from 17th on the grid. Just called the strategy right at every waking moment. Polypunk fastest lap as well in P2. Jones 8th to 3rd. Great drive there for the Mercedes, and he brings himself up a little bit in the championship. He'll go ahead of XTXP. He'll go ahead of Big Tabina as well, I believe, with the point advantage there he's got in terms of how many Tabina scored as well. So a lot of shuffling in the Drivers' Championships, of course, after a race like this. You know, still early days, you expect that, but very, very exciting stuff, and I'm sure the interviews we get in just a moment with the top three will be very, very exciting as well.
Yeah, most definitely. Interviews for our top three in just a moment's time. We're going to be talking to, of course, Mr. Disaster, Polypunk, and Jones. And well, I'm looking forward to talking to all three of them, as this was a very good race. I really enjoyed this race. We saw the safety cars play a role. We saw some drama, some crashes. Very unfortunate to see Mr. IDJ out. He was having a good race. Just a solid first round to kick off the week, as Tier 4 has been doing a great job of that for now 3 rounds of racing action. Of course, we're going to have more action here around Sochi later tonight. America's Tier 2. I'll be commentating that at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 2 a.m. for our friends British Summertime. And, well, that will be this evening. Same place right here on the twitch.tv Misfits RL channel. And, of course, thank you to everybody who's come in tonight. The subs, Dell, thank you for the gifted sub to DJ. Greatly appreciate that, Dell. And then we had Ace come in with a resub, a bunch of follows today. And we're going to get into some interviews in just a quick moment. Man, oh man, it was a thrilling race. It really was a thrilling race. Let's get these interviews sorted and started up, as we're going to be talking to, I think, Jones first. He is available for an interview. If we can get them into the interview room.
Aaron, we're just gonna, like we say, get an interview, of course, P3 for Jones. Jones, welcome. Congratulations, your first podium of the season. Obviously, you know, round 1 didn't quite go your way, but last week, P4, now stepping up to P3 as well. How was that race for you?
Yeah, that was a really fun one. I love Russia. It's a nice, quick, flow-in track. Third, fourth, fifth gear corners. You just get into rhythm, and yeah, I really enjoy that one. yeah, it's good to actually get a proper P3 this week. I was demoted on because of the penalty system last week, but yeah, I'm really happy. Genuine P3. Hopefully that won't get taken away from me either.
Absolutely. Well, not only was it a P3, but it's a P3 from 8th on the grid as well. Qualifying, not as good as the race, but the points are scored here. Obviously, DRS helps, but to gain 5 places in a race is no mean feat. What was sort of the secret today? Or was it, did you feel like you were just comfortable with the setup, or how did you feel you got through the grid as easily as you did?
Well, I've had a really nice stable setup. The Mercedes team, we've got our sort of chat, and they posted a really nice setup. I found it really stable, and I just understood that there's quite a few people faster than me on this grid, so it's pointless me competing with them, fighting on track. It's better on a track like Russia to let them past and use their DRS. It's a quicker finish overall. So yeah, I just played the system as best I could and finished up with P3. A couple more laps of the race, I think some of the fast runners on the soft behind would have caught up and taken me, I think. But yeah.
Well, it certainly worked out for you. Obviously, it's still early days in the championship, and as such, there's not much between everyone. And this podium brings you up a few positions. Just sort of going into next week, how is your confidence? Where do you think you're gonna sort of aim for? Obviously, the win is still possible overall, but early days, now up into, I believe, the top 5 in the standings. So just sort of talk us through your aspirations for the rest of the season. Now we've got your first podium under your belt.
Well, my aim this league has just been to try and get as fast as I can. I'm not too worried about the finishing position. If I try and maximise every race result, if I end up somewhere near the top at the end of the season, fantastic. I'd be well happy with that. But I'm just going to take one race at a time, turn up, try and keep it safe, consistent, try not to spin, try not to get penalties, just keep chipping away at the points, and hopefully at the end of the season it'll be quite high up for me.
Well, Jones, congratulations. Your first podium, of course, here in the interview room, of course. And, well, we'll see whether you can continue that at some point in the rest of the season. But best of luck for next week, and thank you for taking the time out to interview us here tonight.
Right, thanks very much.
Right, that was Jones, everyone. And, well, now it's time to talk to our next racer joining us for an interview, and we got an opportunity to speak to the Scotsman last week. Now, well, back again. This time, the timing tower really either doesn't like you or really does like you, because
This game, man.
How are you feeling?
Are you gonna take this one from me as well? Are you? I demand I get this week's win. No, listen. What a race! Thoroughly enjoyed that. I love Russia. I said last week I loved Russia, and the pole lap surprised me because I didn't see him up near the top of the timing charts. Maybe he was. I didn't notice, but that kind of put me on the back foot from the start. But what a race! It was a good race. Really enjoyed it, and I was a bit surprised to see me winning it again. But nevertheless, I'm pretty sure we'll sort that out, and I'll be second.
Well, it's you keep getting yourself so close to these wins. I mean, last week was 400th less than a second separating you. This week, a penalty throwing a little bit of a curveball your way. Talk about that 3 seconds. What did it mean to you when you got that 3 seconds? Was it just like, okay, now I need to push like hell? Or was it, okay, I'm going to see where we land near the end of the race? What was it like for you when you picked that up?
It was more like my usual, what? What? That kind of reaction, my usual reaction. Because honestly, I thought I was driving pretty clean. And I was seeing people exceed the track limits, but nobody was getting pens. It's a weird track for track limits in Russia. And then I think I extended the track limits once, but I'd gone over a curb at some other point and got track limits. So that gave me the 3 seconds. But then I just had to push. I had to push as hard as I could. And I got past PW Jones. And I was pushing, I was gapping him. And then I realised Polly Punk had caught him, overtook him, and gave him DRS. And I was like, that's it. I'm not going to be able to do it now. And then I noticed he got a 3 second penalty as well. And I was like, yes. Yes, I can coast this last lap. Punk's got the win, and then I'll get second. I'm happy with that.
Well, it was definitely a very good race, and of course now next week we have even more racing action to come with a circuit that, well, we didn't get to really see too much racing action around yesterday in Formula One, but Spa next week. We're going to Belgium. How are you feeling for the next round, round 4?
Looking forward to it. I was trying to think the other night what tracks I actually don't like in this game, and there's probably only one, and it's Monaco. All the rest, I really, really enjoy racing. Spa is just tremendous. Gutted for yesterday's real F1, but I'm looking forward to next Sunday's fake F1.
Well, definitely a good race today. Unicorn, any questions for Daz as we wrap things up?
Well, Daz, obviously, congratulations again, another podium, but P4, P2, P2 now, and it's just, the consistency in terms of everyone else. It seems that, you're up there. Obviously, Grenade today, his first time not on the podium, but this, it's continuing a great run of form. Next week at Spa, you said it, you're looking forward to it, but how long do you could see this run, extending on for?
Listen, consistency is not my middle name. My friends know me as fast on one lap, but absolute fucking disaster. Disaster by name, disaster by nature. So I'm surprised that I'm being this consistent. I'm really being trying to concentrate as hard as I can in these races, and it's paying off. Hopefully, I'll continue on. I'm practicing. I'm doing not bad for an old guy. So we'll see. We'll see if I can last the pace with these young whippersnappers.
Well, Daz, congratulations, and of course, best of luck going into next week, and thank you for taking the time out to interview with us as well.
No worries, cheers, guys.
Cheers,
Well
Daz.
done, Polypunk. Well done, mate. Cheery.
Thanks, Daz. All right, that is going to wrap up interviews with our drivers. I don't believe we're going to get an opportunity to speak to Polypunk today. He's at the very least available in the interview room now. So what is going to happen is we are going to finish up our coverage for Tier 4 this week. We'll be back next week with Round 4 in Belgium for the Tier 4. But of course, we are far from done, absolutely miles from done here with, of course, Russia. As this evening we have the Americas Tier 2 division action, and I will be commentating that, and it is going to be a very, very exciting race, as they have all been very good races so far here in the MRL Season 5. Tomorrow, we'll be back for Tier 3 here at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and that will be 8 p.m. for those of you in the UK, 9 in Central Europe. But man, oh man, what a great race to really kick off the week. We've already come out of the Netherlands with an amazing week of races, and now we're coming into Russia, Tier 4, really putting a massive, massive bar up there for the other grids to come this week. So really looking forward to it. Unicorn, as always, thank you so much to commentating here with me for Tier 4 racing. Anything from you before we wrap up with our outro and raid? I think we might go and see Mr. DJ today after that horrific crash in Sector 2. A crazy, crazy race today overall.
Yeah, absolutely. I said it coming in. I was looking forward to Russia last week after, the Netherlands a little bit more closed off, overtaking. We saw, just as much as I expected. I didn't expect as many spins, and, Sector 2, we saw a couple of people going into each other, so we'll see whether that continues throughout the week. Obviously, if it does, it could have big implications into the races to come, but obviously, only time will tell. So join us for those, but thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, and of course, just quickly before we go, a big shout out to Dell. Once again, a Prime sub coming in from you, as well as the gifted Tier 1 to Mr. DJ. We have Moen coming through with the resub, and everyone that's hitting us up with the subscriptions, the gifted subs, the follows, just watching the streams. Thank you so, so much to the support from all of you, and really, we'll see you later for America's Tier 2 and the rest of the season. Thank you so much, and have a great, great evening, morning, or afternoon, wherever you may be joining us.